We thank you for the presenter. I pray that you may bless him as each one of us to understand and to put in practice what we're learning. Lord, help us to remember, help us to be able to understand everything. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Luis, very, very much. All right, everybody, we are starting right on time, and I am so glad for that and so glad that you are here. Let me attempt to share my screen with you, and we will get everything going. All right. Good. All right. Adele, can you see my screen okay?
Okay, let me see. I'm sending an email to someone that the last moment requested. So
Okay, no, that's okay.
Yes, right. I can see it. It's not full slides.
Yep.
But I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Now it is full.
Okay. All right. So this is our second part 2 of our full and detailed Medicare workshop. And we're glad that all of you are with us today. Again, like I did last week, I want to give just a brief recap of our department. This is our team right here. Luis and Adele are with us. Maria is joining us. Andrew may be able to join us tonight. We are all of us are certified by the NAD to be trust officers. We are audited regularly every 2 to 3 years to make sure that we're performing our duties correctly and that we're being good fiduciaries of not only the monies, but also the responsibilities that have been entrusted to us. And we are required to have 16 hours of continuing education every year. And that is intense, and we are happy to be able to do it. As a member of the Florida Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, you are entitled to some pretty neat privileges, and just a quick recap of those. First off, through our department, free consultation with one of us, again, certified estate planners, certified through the NAD. Your basic estate documents, that includes a will, power of attorney, all of the things that you see over in that left circle towards the bottom, we can do for you. Happy to help you with those. We actually outsource the actual documents to an attorney that would help you. That's completely free. The trust is something you would negotiate directly with the attorney on your own, but all of the other basic documents that you would easily pay between $500 and $1,000 for if you went to an attorney on your own, they're completely free because you're a member of the church. There's no strings attached and no obligation. Many people remember the church in their estate plan, but there are some that can't for various reasons, and that's no problem. We're happy to help either way. And included with that, you will actually meet with the attorney over the phone, and they can answer any questions that you have. It's completely private, and so you can, it's a free consultation with an estate planning attorney. So just a really great deal. And in addition to that, over on the far right-hand side, you see the Southern Union Revolving Fund. I spoke to some people on Sunday who were not familiar with that, so I hope you all are. This is basically a savings account. It works just like the savings account you would have at your bank. The only difference is this pays a much higher interest rate, as high as 3% currently. And the even better news about that is that these funds are used to build churches and church schools. So your money is being used for the Lord's work while it is invested in paying you a nice return at 3%. This money is fully accessible by you at any time. You can withdraw a part or all of it at any time. It's your money, no problem. Now, in the center circle, you'll see charitable gift annuity. A CGA is actually a donation to the church. You have given that money to the church. You cannot access the principal like you could or like you can with the Southern Union Revolving Fund. But with the annuity, you will receive a payout of up to as much as 9%. So a much higher payout that you receive annually, and that can be divided up quarterly, but much higher return on your money. But once you pass, anything that's left in it does go to the church at that point. So it's a big difference between the revolving fund and the gift annuity, but the gift annuity is a great way to bless your church through an estate gift, while at the same time you are receiving a wonderful payout from that. I want to show you a video tonight that is that deals with the state documents, and then we'll talk about the CGA again. But before that, Adeli, if you are able, go ahead and show that video.
Okay. Give me a second. Oh. Okay, let me load it again. Can you hear?
No.
No.
Okay. So give me a second and I'm going to load it again.
Adeli, you do know when you're doing that on Zoom that there are two boxes you have to check to turn on the sound.
You'd be able to step in and help
Yes.
You can hear it?
with medical decisions, right? Maybe not. 5 on Your Side's Monica La Liberty is here now to explain how parents can be powerless. Monica?
I tell you, people I have mentioned this to say, huh? And that is why we want to get the word out. And so does a mom who went through the legal ordeal many parents don't realize until it is too late.
Your child on a ventilator in intensive care.
They took essentially the front third of his skull off so that the brain could swell without causing further damage.
Forrest was still in high school. He had just turned 18.
They told us we should prepare for him not to wake up from his coma. I'm like, how do you prepare for that? You know, it was a very, very difficult time.
Now, 5 years after a devastating snowboarding accident, Forrest is talking, walking, and rebuilding.
It was very cool. It was good. It was good.
Part of the mission now for his mom, Ray, to get parents to think about the unthinkable.
While he was still in a coma, we had to hire an attorney. We had to come back to our county, appear in court, have essentially a little mini trial.
All to get, in essence, legal guardianship to make decisions for Forrest when he couldn't.
We all know legally 18-year-olds are adults. Under HIPAA, that means their medical issues are none of your legal business, even if they're on your insurance. So if your child is in a serious accident and cannot speak for themselves, the care provider, in Forrest's case, the doctors, can make the decisions. It is called implied consent.
And a lot of times we think of this as someone who's getting older, but it really applies to all of us.
Attorney James Van stresses, if you want a say, you must have your child's permission in writing.
Whether or not a feeding tube is placed in, whether or not to take off life support could be issues. And certainly would want mom and dad involved in those decisions. But for having a health care power of attorney, you're really leaving it in the hands of the health care providers.
The 3 signed forms you need, a HIPAA authorization allows healthcare providers to share information with you. A medical power of attorney lets your child name you to make necessary decisions. And with a durable power of attorney, they can name you to handle their financial affairs. After the fact, it can cost thousands of dollars and precious time.
The court appointed an attorney or guardian that had to then drive to UVA neuro ICU where our son was still in a coma and read him this document that says, do you have any objection to giving up your legal rights to vote or to drive or to own property? And that's a terrible thing to, even to hear. I mean, he couldn't understand it, but he couldn't object.
His parents got what they needed to move Forrest to rehab for the next phase of his recovery. In the years since, he graduated high school and now takes a college class.
I mean, just listen to the professor talk about what to do when you go to college, how to do certain things, and how to study properly. Because if you don't know how to study, you're toast.
With his family on his side, he's come a long way.
I mean, if Forrest had stayed in a coma and we hadn't been able to get legal guardianship, then the state would make those decisions. And I mean, I can't imagine how terrible that would be.
Such an incredible story. Forrest had 2 more surgeries last week. The family is now waiting to hear what is next. And worth noting about the documents I mentioned, all of us should have them. And once you have them notarized, save them on your phone or computer so they are quickly available should you need them. And we do have links on WRL.com. Just look under 5 on your side.
Just amazing, Monica. Again, everybody needs this, and to have it accessible at a moment's notice.
Absolutely. And with kids like that, high school age, college age, nobody ever thinks about it until something
Understandable.
happens.
Monica on Liberty, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Adele. That is so powerful. As a father of 2, it's emotional to watch that, but that is the reality of life, and so we have to, as parents, be prepared for anything, or a grandparent want to help, our kids help their kids. And so, and again, we provide all of this advice, all of these services, the actual documents themselves, free. So it's really there for you. Going back to the gift annuities, I just wanted to recap them very briefly. You see from the diagram on the left that a donor makes a gift. It says property, but it's going to be cash or stocks. It can be a deferred annuity so that the payouts start when you're a little older, and that will get you a higher rate, because the rates, as you see over on the right-hand side, are based on your age. This is one time where being older is a good thing. And so the older you are, the higher the payout rate is. The payouts are for the rest of your life. Even if, let's say you gave a $10,000 gift and the $10,000 runs out because we've been making payments to you, every quarter, we're still obligated to continue to make those payments, and we do so. So it's a really great situation. Depending on your tax situation, there may be a tax deduction for that initial gift, and the minimum amount that you can do a gift annuity for with the Florida Conference is $10,000. When you do pass, the proceeds do go to the Lord's work here in Florida. So that's how a charitable gift annuity works. If you've got money in a bank account, even if it's a money market account, and you're only earning, 1 or 2 or 3%, and you'd like to have a little bit more spending money, each year, a gift annuity could be a good solution for you. Again, disclaimer, we are not CPAs or attorneys or licensed financial advisors. I'm not trying to give you any legal or tax or financial advice here, but it's just general information that everybody should know about. Lastly, please do keep your computers on mute, your mics muted, so that if the dog starts barking or the doorbell rings, it won't distract everybody else on the call. Down at the bottom of your screen, if you roll your cursor down there, you'll see a chat icon. If you have any questions, just click on that chat icon and you'll be able to type in any comments or questions that you have. I want to introduce Gene Torres. He was our speaker last week. You're here again this week because he did such a great job last week. And Gene, we're so appreciative of that. Gene has over 38 years of working in this industry. He knows his stuff, but even better than that, he's one of us. He's Seventh-day Adventist. He understands our goals, our philosophies, our principles. And Gene, it's just an absolute honor to have you with us tonight. I thank you for it. And without further ado, Gene, please let me share the time with you.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much. I want to thank Phil and Adele for putting this together. Folks, I really believe that that knowledge and the more knowledge you have, the more power and opportunity that you have to be able to be a good steward of the. Somebody needs to be, we got to put on mute. But obviously the more to be a good steward of the funds that you have. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's see here. Yeah. Hang on one second here. Just minimize and share. And there we go. Can everybody see my screen? I guess so. All right.
Looks good, Gene.
Okay, perfect. All right, great. Just a little of that. All right. So before I begin, I think Phil had mentioned that that there's a chat line at the bottom of the if you use your cursor, it'll open up and a couple things on the bottom of the Zoom call. We're going to try to address all the questions that we get at the end of this presentation. Some of the questions are going to have some personal information, and for that, I think it might be appropriate, rather than you talking about your specific situation, rather than digging into that, I've made at the end of this, I've made my info, contact info available, so that you can reach me. Okay. Now, I do want to make mention of the fact that this is an educational workshop and is intended to clarify some of the confusion surrounding the Medicare system, and understand that this is an overview. I'm going to begin initially by just giving a little more introduction to myself, my organization, and then we'll get right into the topic. As Phil had indicated, this is a two-part presentation. So only because we felt that that there was so much information that it would have been very difficult to get this all in one particular 45 or 35 minute time frame. So many of your questions will be answered either in the first presentation or in the second presentation. It would depend on how you get your Medicare administered. Okay, so without further ado, I'll just go ahead and begin. As he said, obviously, most of you know my name. You will probably know my dad as well. No, he's on the call this morning, or this afternoon, should I say? But the experience that I've had in the business has allowed me to specialize in asset protection through proper planning in a variety of areas. The healthcare area, which is what we're going to talk about today, in the Medicare part of it. But we do all planning as far as healthcare. Also, a topic that I'm very passionate about, and why the CLTC, it's Certified Long-Term Care Specialist, is really talking about what happens if you have to go to a facility, and what I refer to long-term care as is hands-on or standby assistance given to someone with either a chronic illness, some type of disability, or a cognitive impairment. And people are cared for in places like nursing homes, home health, adult daycare, assisted living. And there are things that you can do to protect some of the assets that you have so they don't get all spent in that particular place. But that's very important planning for certain people that have something to protect. Area number 3 is really all about your final expenses. As we all know, there is a cost involved with passing, whether it's as simple as cremation or traditional funeral. Could be that you want to make sure that you have a debt cleanup fund. You want to make sure that maybe your spouse is taken care of, or significant, maybe family members, whatnot, as far as their income. And it might be that you simply want to make sure that you leave a legacy. So that area we do some planning as well, and then also more safe money investments. My designations, as indicates here, are just simply education in the business. I've been a past education and political action committee chairman for our industry, and I've had various awards in sales and service excellence throughout the years. Now, taking a little trip down memory lane, I originally I'm from Brooklyn, New York. That's where my dad had a calling to be a colporteur at that time. He excelled in that area and was promoted to associate publishing director in the Texaco conference many years ago. So he moved our family to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And then from there, we moved to Chicago, got a calling to the ministry in the Chicagoland area, where at that point, those of you who are on the call might know Hinsdale Junior Academy. And then also I went to graduated from Broadview Academy. From there, I had attended Southern, when it was called Southern Missionary College. Now it's Southern University. And so at that point is where I met my wife, and then my business has taken me through various places and landed in Orlando in 2014, simply to be closer to family. I am married 38 years, and I have 3 daughters and 2 grandchildren. Okay, so let's talk about what we're here to talk about. Okay, first of all, for those of you who didn't get a chance to get into last week's presentation, I suggest that you, because it is available through there was a recording on that, and I think the estate planning team can help you if you can't find that. But we're going to continue by talking about the ways that you have your Medicare administered. We're going to talk about a specific way that you can have your Medicare administered, which is called Medicare Part C, which is essentially administered through a private insurance company rather than the government. We're going to talk about enrollment guidelines and enrollment periods, when you can enroll and eligible for certain times that you can enroll in plans. We're also going to talk about a topic that I find is really confusing. The government seems to want to make some of this stuff confusing, but the Part C, the prescription drug program and how it works. And then we're going to talk also about enrollment penalties and why it's important to enroll the time when you're supposed to enroll. And then we're going to wrap it up with some questions and answers, or hopefully majority of answers that I can answer without getting into too much personal information from you. So, so there are obviously 2 ways that you can get your Medicare delivered. Last week, we spoke of the federal government administering it, and that is what we call as original Medicare, okay? The second way that you can have your Medicare administered is through what they call Medicare Advantage, or Part C of Medicare. Okay. Now, I'm not sure if I had made this next slide available because it's kind of busy here, but I want to go through this real quick. This is actually taken directly out of the Medicare and You guide, but if you start at the top here, it says your Medicare coverage choices. There are 2 main choices how you get your Medicare coverage. If you decide to go through the original Medicare side, you would obviously be looking at the left side. So step one is, first of all, deciding on whether or not you want your Medicare administered through original Medicare. And again, those details were explained to you in the first meeting. The other way on the right side is if you took a Medicare Advantage or a Part C. So just briefly, what happens if you take original Medicare? Well, first of all, original Medicare includes hospital insurance and medical or doctor insurance. Medicare provides this coverage directly. So there is no, the federal government provides that. Some of the advantages there is you have choices of doctors and hospitals and other providers that accept Medicare. So you don't have networks. Because Medicare doesn't pay all the everything that you would be responsible for, you would need a supplemental plan, and that supplemental plan will hopefully be able to, depending upon which one you choose, will cover deductibles and co-insurances. But you would also need to pay your Part B Medicare, which is this year it's $164.90. You would also, step two, you would need to decide on a prescription drug plan if you chose that. And that would be simply where you would have a separate plan that would be an additional premium, but it would be administered by a private insurance company, because Medicare, they fund it or partially fund it, but they do not administer the Part D. And then, since, as I indicated before, Medicare leaves some things for you to cover, says you may want to get coverage that fills the gaps in original Medicare. You can choose to buy a Medigap, which is synonymous with the Medicare supplement policy, through a private insurance company that covers what Medicare leaves for you to pay, or a portion of it, and the cost will vary by policy as well as company. Now, there's a little difference in if you have employer or similar coverage. Sometimes that'll work as a supplement, depending upon the administrator of your plan, if you're retired or retiring and needing that, wanting to keep that coverage. So today we're going to talk about what happens if you choose Medicare Advantage. A Medicare Advantage it includes both A and B together. And in most cases, it'll also include D. So it's basically private insurance companies that are approved by Medicare to provide this coverage. Most plans, you'll need to choose a plan doctor, a hospital, and other providers, because they're all network based. And I know in Orlando, there's not a premium, but some places there might be a little premium that you have to pay, but cost and extra coverage rules may apply by plan. Okay. Now, the note at the bottom there, I want to make sure that we all understand this. If you join a Medicare Advantage plan, you don't need a Medigap policy. Okay, that's important. As a matter of fact, it's illegal for somebody to sell you a Medigap policy if you have a Medicare Advantage plan. If you already have a Medigap policy, you can't use it to pay for out-of-pocket costs for the Medicare Advantage plan. If you already have Medicare Advantage, an Advantage plan, then you can't be sold a Medigap policy. Okay, so very, very important. Let's get right into it. Now, obviously, Medicare, if it's delivered by the federal government, the left side is where your original Medicare and Medigap policy or Medigap supplemental insurance is going to be involved. There's a premium in addition to the Part B coverage. But again, you have freedom to choose doctors. There's no referrals, routine things like vision and hearing, unless they're some type of medical, maybe an illness or an injury. But generally just to get your glasses fixed or your hearing aids, typically they're not covered by Medicare. And in the Medigap policy, it covers anywhere in the United States. Okay. On the Medicare Advantage side, again, it would be a lower premium, but it has co-pays. It does restrict you to networks. You may need referrals for specialists, but for that, you have some additional benefits that we'll talk about on the next couple slides. And it's only if you're out of the area that you live, it will only cover you for emergency services only. Okay, so if you happen to live part of the time here and part of the time up north, and you have a doctor in both places, be sure that you have a plan or your doctors are all in that network. Otherwise, if they're not in network, you could be stuck with the bill, and that's important to note. Okay, so Part C, well, first of all, it was enacted in the Balanced Budget Act of 1997. Okay, insurance companies receive funds from the Centers of Medicare Services, and they bundle benefits of A, B, and D, in most cases D, and that began in 1999. So think about that. That's been nearly over 25 years that it's been in existence. Okay. Now, CMS, Centers of Medicare Services, oversees these private insurance companies, so they become the I guess just kind of the person that makes sure that these insurance companies are doing what they need to be doing. So they assign a star rating to these companies. 1 star being not so good, 5 star being excellent. The higher the rating, the more funds private insurance companies receive to manage their plans. So it's just like when we went to school. If you got an A in school, if you were getting an allowance, you got a little better allowance than if you got other lower grades. So the same premise here. Now, as I said before, private insurance companies set up networks, whether it's an HMO or a PPO, and I think a lot of us are familiar with those terms, to provide health insurance, and they simply negotiate fees and increase networks. Obviously, insurance companies, as we all know, are masters of risk management. So they negotiate with these providers, and fees are generally renegotiated yearly. Providers can opt in and out of these plans. Okay. When the plans had first come out in 1997, they weren't that popular, only because the networks weren't established, and it was very difficult to find doctors that would be on the plan. But 25 years later, we have found that these plans are becoming more and more popular. So let's get a little more into the details of that. First of all, as I said before, CMS transfers those funds to a private insurance company. And when they do that, when you enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan, the Medicare Advantage plan is the moment that you sign up for the Medicare Advantage plan, an application goes to the insurance company, which in turn goes to Medicare and Social Security, and to make them aware of the fact that you've chosen to take your Medicare through the private insurance company resource. Okay, so they transfer those funds. Medicare Advantage, as I said before, typically will bundle A, B, and D together. Most plans are going to be A, B. Now, you can get a plan that just does A and B, but D generally is one that's very popular as well. Now, because of the negotiating of these fees, insurance companies are able to save funds, save money, and provide additional benefits that are not covered by Medicare. So, for example, they go to a doctor in an area and they say, "Doc, we want you to charge, rather than charging, let's say $100, we want you to charge $80 for this particular service," or whatever it is. And then with the savings, they're able to give you things like dental, vision, hearing, which they're not comprehensive. Depending upon the plan, is going to depend upon the how robust those benefits are. Sometimes some of these plans will give you gym memberships. They'll give you transportation to and from medical appointments. Some plans will possibly reduce your Part B. There's some over-the-counter things that they'll provide for you. and some funds for other qualified expenses and many more. Matter of fact, not allowed to talk about the new benefits coming up until October 1st, but there's a lot of plans that are coming out with some pretty neat things if you're in that particular realm and you decide to choose to take your Medicare by a private insurance company, okay? Now, there's some factors that you have to take into consideration when you select a plan, and that is, first of all, your doctor. If you have a relationship with your doctor or your specialist that has maybe some history, sometimes you want to stay with that doctor. So that's important. You want to make sure that you get a plan, if you're going to go that route, that the doctor will take. Also, where you live. That's important because plans are generally regional plans or state plans. Assets and income have a lot to do with it as well, because if your income is a little lower, you might qualify for some additional benefits through the state. If your assets are higher in income, you might wind up having to pay more for the Part B of Medicare. Also, prescriptions that are taken, very important. You want to make sure that your plan plays well with your prescriptions and you get the lowest cost for your prescriptions, as well as specific health conditions. For example, somebody might be diabetic. And if you're diabetic, you certainly know that you're going to need to have some maybe additional supplies versus someone who's not diabetic. So there's plans that are specific to specific conditions. And then also personal preferences, which you're obviously, if you're looking at some of the things that we talked about on top, whether it's dental, vision, hearing, gym memberships, et cetera, those things might come into play in factors to consider when selecting a plan. These plans, as I indicated before, will generally come in two fashions. They'll come in the HMO, which generally requires a referral to see a specialist. That's very important because with the HMO, if you do not get a referral to see a specialist, you might get caught with the bill. So it's important that you go see your primary care physician before you see a specialist if you have an HMO. Now, the other option would be PPO, and that PPO, it doesn't require referrals, and you may be able to get some outside of network benefits, but you more than likely have to pay a little higher copayment on the plan. That's just the trade-off that you get with either one of those, okay? So, first of all, enrollment guidelines, you must, in order to get the Advantage program, you must have A and B of Medicare, first of all. If you never enrolled in a Part C, and a lot of people ask me about this, and you're on original Medicare with the supplement, the government allows you to try out the Part C for 1 year. It's kind of the get out of jail card, I guess. If you want to try it for 1 year, if you don't like it, you can go back to original Medicare and you get your Medicare supplement back without qualifying health-wise. That's only one time in your lifetime, okay? Now, there's special times that you can enroll, and those special times are, first of all, got a lot of alphabets here, but first is ICEP. ICEP is when most people qualify for Medicare, that's when they turn 65 years of age, referred to as the initial coverage election period. That's typically 3 months before your birth month, and 3 months after. That's the time frame in which you can apply. One of the ways that you can apply. Also, other ways that you can get the Part C is if you have a special enrollment period, which is a life-changing event, such as say you move to Florida, you move to another area. There might be a disaster that was declared, and they'll allow you to some extra time to make some elections if that was an issue that impacted your way of enrolling. And then if you sometimes qualify for the state assistance Medicaid program, you're allowed to change once a quarter as well. if you have a health change, you go to the doctor and he says you've got something that needs some additional attention. You just found out. There's some chances that you can enroll in those plans and switch to other plans. The other time that you can, in terms of enrollments, once a year, and we're about actually in about another month or so, we're going to be getting into our busiest season, which is the annual election period. This is where you're going to see a lot of TV ads and commercial or billboards, buses and whatnot that are all going to be talking about this October 15th or December 7th time. That's the time that if you have an Advantage plan or if you have original Medicare and you want to try the Advantage plan out, you have from October 15th to December 7th to enroll with an effective date of January 1st. Okay. So you can, and I generally always suggest that you at least check the plan that you have to see if there's anything that you can get that's better. And then if you happen to choose an Advantage plan between the October 15th and the December 7th timeframe, there's a time frame that you can do a like-to-like switch between January and March. If you just found out that you didn't like the plan or something happened, they'll give you that option as well. So that's called open enrollment period. Okay. Now, let's get into the Part D. Okay. First of all, the Part D, which is obviously the prescription drug part of it, it was introduced back in 2003, so nearly 20 years ago. And it's obviously a program that was implemented to simply help with the prescription drug costs, since obviously they're pretty expensive by themselves. But they're available to all people that are on Medicare, and they're provided by just an individual plan. If you have original Medicare, bundled with the Advantage plan. And then there's some other plans that are also available, like, for example, some group plans, as well as maybe the VA that might give you some coverage through the prescription drug area. Okay. Now, how it works, this is really a little bit confusing, so I'll try to make sure that we go through this slowly. But these are administered, all Part D plans are administered through private insurance companies, and CMS guidelines indicate that a private insurance company must provide the same or better benefits as the model that you're about to see. Okay, so what the government did is they put a model together, and there's 4 stages to this model, and they said as long as an insurance company can follow these guidelines or have better than these guidelines, they can offer a plan that covers prescription drugs. And here's how it goes. First of all, the first stage is an annual deductible. Okay, now I'm going to get into some of the details in the next couple screens. The next stage is the initial coverage period, and we'll talk about what that's all about. Stage 3 is one that I hear a lot about. A lot of people say, well, man, what is this coverage gap or this donut hole thing that I hear people talk about? So we'll talk about that. And then also after that donut hole, there's catastrophic coverage. So these are the 4 stages. Stage 1, no more than $505 annually of the retail cost of the drug is going to be, the first $505 is going to be the annual deductible. Now, there are some plans that have no deductible. So if they have no deductible on your plan because they just simply were able to negotiate with these pharmaceutical companies, then you can skip straight to the next step. Some deductibles on plans will apply to drugs on specific tiers, like there's tier 1, tier 2, like generic, then preferred generic, brand name, those types of things. Sometimes plans will apply towards specific tiers of drugs, and again, those are things that we would just simply have to review when you're looking at trying to get a plan. Now, understand if you're paying a premium for your Part D, and that would be if you're on original Medicare, that doesn't apply towards your deductible, okay? So stage 2 is the initial coverage period. Now, the initial coverage period begins when your plan if your plan has no deductible, as we talked about earlier, or when the retail cost of your prescription reaches the deductible, okay? Now, that's a little confusing because you generally pay copays and you think, oh my goodness, I'm going to pay a copay of $10 and I'm going to have those $10. I'm going to have that the only thing is being applied towards either the deductible or through the initial coverage stage. This is the retail cost of the prescriptions. You'll generally get a summary of benefits or summary of what is paid each month and how much the retail cost is. So you'll want to look at those to see what the retail cost is. Or when you get your prescription filled, you'll see normally they'll give you a sheet and they'll clip it to the little thing that they put the prescriptions in. I guess a little whatever it is bag. And that bag on that it'll show you what the actual retail cost is, what you're paying, and so that way you can at least see what the retail cost is. Okay, so you're obviously as long as your drug is on the formulary, which is the list of covered drugs, your portion is going to be either a copay, whether it's $0, whether it's $10, whatever it is, or a percentage. Again, the amount depends on the tier level assigned to your drug. You end this stage when the amount you and your plan, which is the total retail cost, adds up to the limit set by Medicare for 2003, which is 2023, which is $4,660. $4,660. That's not what you pay out of pocket, but rather what you and your plan pays for the cost of the drug. Okay. At that moment is when you would go into the coverage gap or the donut hole. Okay. And the donut hole it begins when you and your plan have collectively spent $4,600. So you might pay 10, they may pay 100. Okay. Not everyone will enter the coverage gap or donut hole, okay? If you enter the donut hole, you would then be responsible for 25% of the cost of the retail cost of the drug, okay? All the way up, and you'll exit the coverage gap when you and your plan total cost of covered drugs, not including your premium, reaches $7,400. So if you simply subtract 74 from 4,660, you're going to come up with 2,740. So again, if you wanted the math there, 25% of 2,740 is $685 is what this year your coverage or the donut hole is going to expose you to. Okay. At that moment, when you reach $7,400, you and your plan, then you go into what they call as catastrophic coverage. Okay. Now, catastrophic coverage begins when you and your plan out-of-pocket cost reaches $7,400 on covered drugs, okay? In the catastrophic stage, you will pay a low copayment set by Medicare. Generally, it's going to be, I think it's like $3.95 and $8.95. That means that the plan and the government will pay for the rest of the amount. So they pay approximately 95% of the cost at that point, and you'll remain in that stage till the end of the plan year. Okay, so that's how the benefits for prescription drugs work. Again, each individual plan is going to talk about whatever their copays are, whatever drug that you currently take. Okay. Now, one thing to note is that it's important to know that whether you take drug prescriptions or not, I suggest that you enroll in a plan, because enrollment penalties will be assessed if you didn't enroll during the eligible time that you were supposed to enroll. And the penalties are where they would take the national average cost, which right now in 2023 is approximately $33. And for every month that you did not enroll, you would have an extra 1% permanent 1% penalty for every month that you did not enroll in a plan that you should have enrolled. So it's obviously approximately $3 for every month. That could add up. Now, remember that just because if you're trying to save money, it may hurt you in the end, because your doctor, you might go to the doctor might put you on a prescription where before you weren't on a prescription, and then you want to see if you can get the plan. You're going to wind up paying more money. So again, very important that you enroll when you're supposed to enroll. However, penalties can be waived if you have credible coverage, and that is coverage either through some sort of work or otherwise. Credible coverage does cease. When it does cease, you have to enroll within 63 days, or you'll be subject to that penalty. Okay. Now, our organization has a proprietary system, which I find is a competitive advantage. It caters to personal preferences, and we do an interview with folks just so that we make sure that we look at everything that they're interested in to see that we get all the benefits that they're not only entitled to, but the benefits that they would want to get, because everyone's situation is different. And how we determine that is obviously through a system called the Medicare Center. Okay. Couple more slides. One thing is that I would say is between, I guess, now and at the end of the year, you're going to see, as I said before, you're going to see a lot of TV ads and a lot of mailers. And there's going to be people calling and all these types of things. Please be vigilant, be careful, because these TV ads or mailers are typically very general and do not have your individual circumstances in mind. Another thing is just because a friend or family member has a specific plan, that doesn't mean that plan is going to work best for you and your individual needs. Okay. Just like shoes. My shoes may not fit you. Okay. Many ads will also boast about the benefits in all the plans. So they tell you all these benefits in the plans, and they're very unclear and sound as if you can get all these benefits. And when you call, you find out that sometimes you might not be able to get the ones that you wanted, or you only get some of them, and get a little disillusioned. So very important to talk to somebody rather than doing it over the phone or otherwise. Talk to somebody who you trust, who can give you proper guidance and information about that, because insurance, I always find, is almost like a parachute. You don't want to find out it has holes in it when you open it up. Okay, so very important. In conclusion, why is it important to review your plans yearly? Well, first of all, plans change. They could discontinue a plan, and that's something important to note, so you stay current. Also, physicians may drop a plan. Advantage plans, again, you have to choose those specific networks. So some physicians may drop, or they might pick up a plan. Insurance benefits within the plan might change from year to year, and you more than likely, some of you, if you're on those plans, you'll see some of the benefit changes. Also, formularies change, prescription formularies change. You might go to the doctor, as I said before, and the doctor might change your prescription. Your needs might change, or your financial status might change. Okay, so that's important. Matter of fact, I just found out that one of the doctor's offices, I don't know if some of you might know Conviva, which is a doctor's office, they just added a carrier. We just got an email that today they added a carrier. So again, these are some things that that you want to make sure that you're reviewing on a yearly basis at a minimum. Okay, so I know that I went through quite a bit of information, and I wanted to keep it within the time limit that we had, but I wanted to just throw out if there's any questions. Now, before I take some questions, I want to leave this slide up here. I am in Altamont Springs. There's my phone number, 352-804-2470. That is my cell phone number. And my email address is gtorres@asb.insure. So, Phil, Adeli, questions?
Well, thank you so much, Gene. Very, very good. There's some questions in the chat, and Deli, you could read those, or you may be able to see them yourself, Gene. But
Let's
I
see.
think there's 3 or 4 questions or comments there.
Let's see. I haven't opened them up, but Adeli, maybe you can read them for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's start. The first one is, once you are on Medicare Advantage, can you switch to Medigap plan?
You can, however, most plans are going to require you to health qualify. So there's going to be a list of questions that they will ask to see if you qualify. Now, the only way that you can, like for example, if you went out of original Medicare, went back to or went to the Medicare Advantage and then went back to original Medicare, that's the only other time that you won't be eligible, or you don't have to qualify health-wise.
Okay. The other question is that coverage gap for all drugs one individual uses in a year, or is it for just one medication that an individual uses, even
Yes.
though the individual may be using several medications?
Great question. That is all drugs. All your prescriptions, all of them are going to be added together.
Okay.
Good question.
So we have another one. What is the cost of a Part D Medicare plan?
Well, now, if you take it and you're on original Medicare, it varies, because there's plans that could be as low as $15 a month to up in the hundreds. So again, that would have a lot to do with the prescriptions you're taking and how they play with the plans.
Okay. Say, what are your thoughts on high deductible G? You did not mention it last week.
Yeah, the high deductible G, for those folks who are in good health that can afford it's like a $2,500 deductible for the year. If you can afford, you set aside those funds. I think that's a good option for some people. Yes.
Okay. Does the Part B premium stay the same for all regarding of income at $164.90?
No, last week we kind of broke that down, and there's actually where your income as an individual, if it's I think it's 97,000, between 18 and 97,000, and then individual or should I say couples between 24,000 and 190,000 income. Those amounts that's who would pay the 164. If it's less than that, you would pay less. If it's more than that, it's obviously you pay more.
And let me add a comment. Last week, I talked about the IRA rollover or qualified charitable distribution. This is exactly when that can be helpful for somebody, because if you're right on the edge of having that premium go up, Gene, I think you mentioned 190,000. It may be for a couple. I know that number changes from year to year, but whatever it is, if you and your spouse are right at that limit, and now all of a sudden you find out you have to take this distribution from your IRA, even if you donate that distribution 100%, you still have taken it as income. Yeah. So you still have to report it as income. And so that could cause your Part B premium to go up.
That's right. That's right.
So
Good
that's
point.
a great example of when yeah, the charitable rollover is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so can you change from one Advantage plan to another during an enrollment period?
You can, absolutely can. And there is no health qualification for the Advantage plans, unlike the supplemental plans.
Can you tell us how SHARP factors into this?
Yeah, well, now SHARP actually back in, let me see, I think it was, I believe it was 17 or 2018.
Yes.
The General Conference had decided that rather than them administering the health care for employees, they decided that they were going to, depending upon the years of service, they decided that they were going to give a stipend depending upon the years of service that you can use to defer some of your medical expense costs. Now, as long as you enroll in one of the plans, and I think it used to be Aon, and now it's Alight, where you have an enrollment period. As long as you enroll in one of the plans, you're eligible for those funds to be used throughout the year. So you just got to be careful. You got to enroll in either a supplemental plan. You got to enroll in either Advantage plan, a Part D prescription drug plan, or a dental vision plan that they offer. So you got to enroll in at least one plan to get that stipend.
Okay, so should I call my local advocate to change back to original Medicare with Medigap, or will you cover some of the decisions?
Well, that's a question that we'd have to probably find out a little bit more about your situation. That's one that I would say, I'd be more than happy. You can give me a call offline, and I'd have to go through some additional questions with you that probably wouldn't want to share with everybody today. But I'd be more than happy to.
What do you think of just having Medicare A and B and then having supplemental insurance?
I believe for some people it's a great solution, only because you're allowed to go to any doctor that accepts Medicare, and there's no networks. So again, it's an individual situation, and it also depends on sometimes where you live too, because if you live in a rural area and you don't have as many doctors in your area, unlike Orlando, there's a doctor in about every corner. You certainly want to make sure that those are some factors that you take into consideration. If you travel, if maybe you have the means to take care of it, you just don't want to have to worry about networks. Again, that would factor into whether or not you would want to go on original Medicare. Again, those are just personal preferences.
Okay, so we still have 2 questions, so let's finish with the presentation, and then anyone that wants to stay to answer those questions, we will be at the end. We just want to respect everybody's time.
Yep.
So go ahead, Phil.
Thank you, Adele, very, very much. I appreciate you being sensitive to the clock. And folks, this does conclude our presentation. I want to thank Gene so very, very much for taking his time to do this, especially in the evening like this. Gene, thank you. Folks, you are welcome to stay on for the rest of these questions, and for any others you may want to chat in on. And Gene, as long as you're available, we'll just let you call it off when you're done. Sure. But folks, we're here for you. You can reach us and we'll help you with your estate planning. You can reach us and we'll connect you with Gene, or as you can see on the screen, his contact information is there. And I'm assuming, Gene, you'd love to hear from anybody. You'd be willing to hear from anybody at any time. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
And I also want to mention that if anybody wants to have the copy of the previous presentation and this presentation, please send me an email, because here in the chat, I will not have access to emails. So just send me an email requested and I will be happy to send you the form. And I also had a PDF file that Eugene gave me. So I will share that to you as well.
Yep.
Okay, so do we go to the next questions?
Sure.
Yeah, Gene, you take it from here, folks. Thank
Okay.
you so much, Gene. Thank you. And I'm certainly going to stay on because these questions are very interesting.
Yes.
So the other question is, what if you are diagnosed with a cancer that require a drug or medication that cost many thousands per month, which most seniors cannot afford?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that there are some pharmaceutical assistance programs that sometimes will help, because those drugs are typically in the tier 5 area, and they are very expensive. But some pharmaceutical assistance programs are available for folks. You know, we obviously we can maybe talk offline if that's your situation to give you more information about that.
What is the difference between the annual election period and an open enrollment period?
So the annual election period is the annual enrollment is basically the October 15th through December 7th. Okay, that's the time that you're able to enroll in a plan with an effective date of January 1st. Okay. The open enrollment period is if you decided that, let's say within that time frame, you said, I got a plan, and a friend of mine told me that I wanted to check this other plan out. It gives you an opportunity to do one more switch between January and March, end of March. That's the difference.
Okay, so I think that's the last question that we have.
Wonderful.
Gene, I have a question for you.
Okay.
My parents-in-law are using WellCare.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to compare one thing with the other. What do you know about WellCare compared to the information that you're giving us?
Yeah, sure. WellCare is one of the companies that I represent. So it would have a lot to do with, because WellCare has I'm going to say probably 6 or 7 different or even more plans. So it would depend upon the plan. Matter of fact, before I got on this call, Luis, I had a client that called me, and they interestingly enough had WellCare. So the first thing that I would want to look at is on their ID card, somewhere on the ID card, I can't remember if it's what corner it's on, but there's a number that makes a reference to the plan that they have, which generally starts with an H, okay? And then it has 4 numbers after that, like an H1025-216. If I know those, I can do a quick research to find out what kind of plan they have. And then what I would say is be a good idea just to kind of put them side by side, just to see, you throw their prescriptions in there and you see how that plan is going to play with it next year versus the other plans that are available in the area.
They're very happy with WellCare, and WellCare is let me tell you.
Yeah, it's a good company.
They receive a lot of information, and these people are on the dot there, like.
Yeah. Well, the number of agents that obviously you've got a good agent, but I would just simply say review it. That wouldn't cost anything for you to at least get a plan reviewed, and hopefully it's not a plan that's changing or whatnot. But every year it changes, so it's a good idea just to look.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Any other? I think we're good.
Yeah. Oh, someone wrote, I think, another.
Okay. One more question.
what do we need for care for our loved ones? Medical POA, durable POA, HIPAA authorizations.
Okay, well, that's a
You need-
Phil, that you guys question.
You need all of those. Go ahead, Phil.
That's a good question for you guys.
So Alexis, I just sent you a chat directly saying that, yeah, you need all three of those. Absolutely. You absolutely need the HIPAA because else the doctors and the pharmacists and the nurses won't even talk to you. And that can be very, very frustrating. Even if you're just trying to pay a bill, they can't give you information. So the HIPAA, absolutely. The medical power of attorney, absolutely. You're going to need that. And then certainly the durable power of attorney. The difference between there's two types of powers of attorneys. One is a basic power of attorney. And I could give that to anybody. I could give that to Gene and say, hey, Gene, I'm trying to sell my house. I'm going to be in Europe for 6 months. If I get an offer, I'm going to give you my power of attorney to sell the house for me. And Gene can do that, and that's it. A durable power of attorney means that it's
general durable.
valid forever. Whereas the other one that I give to Gene, that's only for a specific period of time or for a specific situation. But we only do durable powers of attorneys here, and we recommend that that's all that you would do, because if a person develops dementia, a regular power of attorney ceases to be effective. But durable power of attorney remains effective. So you definitely want to have all three of those documents. But I'd encourage you, I sent you my phone number in the chat. I would encourage you to give one of us a call, because in addition to those three documents, there may be some other planning. In other words, how accounts are titled, for example. If your loved one has a savings or checking account, we need to talk about if it's just in their name alone, or maybe you want to do something differently. Similarly with any other asset. So there's some other little tips and strategies that we could talk about.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I thank you all for giving me the time, and again, I'm available. So I'm gonna sign off.
Okay,
Jane, thank you so very much.
God bless.
Thank you for helping us. And I just want to remind everybody that we had the Florida conference offered free service for all our members. And we have found out that when we do a meeting like this, almost 80% of the people do not have estate planning in place. And it is free. Please call us and we will be happy to help you.
All right. Thank you. I'm signing off.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Thank you, Adele. Good job.
Thank you.